You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
Are you working really hard in your business and just not quite seeing the results that you really want? Well, what if you actually could be pushing too hard? Is there even such a thing as trying too hard or working too hard? We've all been brought up with this belief that just work hard for what you want and you'll get it. But what if there is such a thing as working too hard for it, pushing too hard? What does this even look like? What does it mean? Well, that's what today's episode is all about. So if it sounds like you, please stay tuned.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
Today, my very special guest on the podcast is Helen Kho of Khoworks. Now, I've known Helen for about a year or so from a business mastermind that we're in. And we got talking and I just found it so interesting and relevant to learn about what she focuses on with business owners that she helps. And this is the whole concept of actually pushing too hard. So overanalyzing, working really hard and just actually pushing yourself, which we all think is obviously what we need to do to get the result. Like if we're not where we want to be, then we've got to do more. We've got to work harder. We've got to put in that extra effort. And what she's discovered is actually this can be one of the things that's stopping you from getting the result that you really want, which sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? However, Helen is an absolute expert in helping to recognize whether you are in this state, whether you've gone past the mark of the right amount of work, the right amount of effort that's going into the zone of pushing too hard, and also helping you to not only recognize it, become aware of it, but put in place some of the tools to overcome this. Because it is actually a barrier that you've created in your own life, which is crazy because it's the reason why we're working so hard is to get the result. And this barrier is the thing that's stopping you from getting the result. And we've gone and created it for ourselves. Insane. So I asked Helen to come on the podcast and share with us a lot of what she knows about how do we recognize whether we are in that place of working too hard, pushing too hard. What can we do about it? What kind of things might we be experiencing so that you can gain that insight and really look at this year as your year to look after yourself, to do the right amount of work and actually to achieve those results that you absolutely know that you're capable of. So I can't wait to share this interview with you. Without further ado, let me play it for you. Oh, and welcome here. I'm here with Helen Kho, who is the founder of Khoworks. Thank you so much for joining me today, Helen. It's a real pleasure to bring you on the podcast. I know that we're going to have a really great chat today. So welcome.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you for having me in your show.
Yes, it's so good. I think that, we've got so much to cover. But before we dive into some of the great things you're going to share with us around what might really be holding us back or maybe some of the hidden barriers to success that you see in working with your clients, could you give us a quick intro into really who you are and what it is that you do at Khoworks?
Sure. I am a life and mindset coach. I am based in the Netherlands, in Europe. And my clients are actually purpose-driven business owners or people who want to kind of take a different turn in their career where they are looking for more fulfillment and more joy in the work they do. So, and in my work with business owners, of course, they want to grow and have more revenue, but they also want to work with their ideal clients. They want to enjoy the work that they're doing. They want to keep kind of following their heart and turning their passion into their work. And so I help them with that by kind of helping them keeping that they can do what they do, and then they can make time to also create the new things that they are really passionate about.
That is just so powerful. I think in what you shared there, it's really like we have these visions or these ideas and things that we feel like we really want to do, but there's something that makes it hard to actually make it happen or to get there. And so I think this is a really great way to uncover, I guess, a bit about what we're going to talk about today, because I think that's one thing to sort of set a goal and know what your goal is. What do you find is happening with your clients when they are just not making any traction, they're not making progress towards their goal? What do you see as some of those hidden barriers, the things that are in their blind spot that they don't realize what's actually stopping them getting there?
Yeah, maybe it's helpful to share a experience that I had personally a couple of years ago. I went to a business event a few years ago with a friend who was also a business owner. I come from like the way I work was always like pushing, doing my best. I was also very keen on great results, and that was working for me for a long time. And when I was in the States, we were in Atlanta, I think it was like the third or the fourth day I spent with my friend and a lot of other business owners. And we were just brainstorming. And he said, "Oh, I will help you think of, the things that you need to do for your new program," because I had worked one-on-one and I wanted to do something for a group of business owners. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. So we sat in the lobby and he started asking me questions about what is the program about and who is it for and how many people do you want in your group? And I was kind of not answering all his questions. So I didn't know why, but it was like I didn't know anything anymore. But his questions weren't difficult because I was planning on using the one-on-one experience that I had to turn that into a group program. So I knew the steps, I knew the method, but in the moment that he was asking me questions about that and I had to answer so I could create that program, I didn't know anything anymore. So I said, "I don't know what it's about. I don't know the steps." And he was like, what do you mean? you know your work, right? And I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure." And so I was kind of surprised that I was ducking his answers and didn't want to answer at all. And I didn't feel anything until one moment when he asked the question, "What if?" So I said, "I want 6 people in the group or something." And he said, "What if you only had 1?" And I was like, "What? 1?" And then suddenly these emotions just came up and I started crying. Like it was an ugly cry.
Wow.
And I didn't know it was there. I didn't understand at that moment. But I was crying. And I think it took me maybe 40 minutes. And he was like, "Is it okay if I ask you more questions?" I said, "Yes, go on," because I knew there was something subconsciously. I didn't know it was there, but there was something blocking me from moving forward, creating that program, launching it, because I was afraid to fail. And that was an experience that really opened my eyes, because up till that moment, I was always looking for the next, marketing strategy, the next thing I needed to do. And it wasn't that. What I needed was to look within and to see what was actually holding me back. So that was an example. Maybe some of your listeners will recognize, an experience, but I just knew that when you are pushing hard, and you feel like you need to work more, work harder, learn new things, and you feel like it is very tiring the way that you do it, maybe you have some subconscious beliefs that you need to work on.
Yeah. This is incredible. I think we should unpack that a little bit more because, really that fear of failure that you've described, it's there beneath, but we may not recognize it. But what we might recognize that we do maybe would be things like over-analyzing, every opportunity. So you're playing to win all the time and playing not to lose because you've got that real fear of failure. So maybe that's actually more accurate, the playing not to lose. Like, are you trying to play a game that you know without a doubt that you cannot lose, and therefore stopping yourself from taking those actions into a new opportunity where you don't have the certainty that you're going to win? Except that's kind of a crazy way to think about it, isn't it? Because what would you say to a client who is in that place where they are trying to play a game that they know that they can win? So they're really holding themselves back. What do you see them doing? And what would you say to them about this fact that, well, you're not going to know for sure whether you win or not before you do something? How do you get over that hurdle? Like, because this is clearly something you've experienced,
Yes.
You've maybe overcome it, which is why you help other people with it. So, what would those steps be that
I think it is very important to kind of go within and to see, like, sometimes we need to understand where it's coming from. Not always. You can sometimes just kind of overrule any, beliefs that you have by thinking differently, having a new perspective. But sometimes when you don't realize that it is happening, we need to unpack that and to see, when did that start? When did you learn that you had to have great results to feel worthy of, feeling successful and receiving, all the good things in life? And so when you start thinking about when you had that feeling of, I have success because I achieved something, like maybe good grades or something like that, can really open your eyes. I had one client who had her own business, and she told me, like, she's really talented, very creative, successful in what she does. But she felt like, I want to have more of a good balance between work and life balance, because she was seeing how her friends were, doing a lot of fun stuff. And she would not join them because she felt she had to work even in the weekends. And she told me, like, I have a deadline, but actually the work is done. And still I didn't join them when they asked me to come. And I felt really bad. It was like she couldn't stop herself from saying no while she wanted to go, and she could go, actually. And so when I started asking her questions about that, about doing things perfectly, because she would call herself a perfectionist, then suddenly she was reminded of how she was compared to her sister when she was small. And her sister was always doing better in school, and she was praised for that. And she felt like she wasn't good enough for many years, until she found her way to do really well in school as well. And she was excelling at things, and she felt good about that because she was praised for that. And suddenly it hit her that she was still, as an adult, she was still trying to feel good enough by doing things perfect, by getting acknowledgement from other people about the work that she does. And that's the reason why, even if she wants to join her friends, she didn't. But she was always working, and it was never really good enough. And once she saw that, she felt that she could release that bit by bit. So we worked on that in the period after, but that was like the first big breakthrough, realizing that.
That is so powerful. And I wonder, listening along, I think there's so many things that I can relate to as well, because I'm sure a lot of people who might call themselves high achievers or recognize in themselves that you're a high achiever, you're always pushing. Maybe there's a tendency for striving for perfectionism, not liking it when something's not done right, and definitely wanting to do things that you think this is going to be the best way to do it. Like, you're looking for that best way all the time. That question of, well, where does that come from? What are you afraid of? So what if it's not? What if it's not the best bet? What if it doesn't work? What if all of those things happen? What's beneath that? And then finding that link to, well, where does that actually come from? I just feel like that's so powerful because so much comes from early days. And, when we're just like a sponge, we've got nothing written us, as a child, a young child, we don't have any hang-ups about it because we're so young. But there comes to that point where you start to learn things, right, about other people, and you wonder, well, how much influence did our parents have on us, without feeling like we need to blame our parents for it. It may have been our own interpretation of what was going on,
Yes.
So and I think that's such an important thing, because you see a lot, especially online and social media, and, a lot of people relate things back to their parents. Well, I'm this way because of my parents and because of things that happened. And, yeah, probably we all are, right? We're the product of our parents. I look at my kids now and think, oh my God, that's what I've created. I've done this. With all of the goods and bads, but the whole, I've got to always turn the mirror back on me. If there's something I don't like, I've got to say, well, how did I create this?
Yeah, it's not to blame anyone for, how you experience things. Even when your parents have the best intentions.
They're always acting in our own best interests, aren't they?
Yeah. That's true. But the funny thing is that if you are used to striving, doing your work well, you have getting all the acknowledgement for the work that you do, that sometimes you cannot imagine that you have some issues maybe with self-worth being linked to the results that you're getting. Because if you can have like a sense of good self-esteem, but still there is some form of, lack of self-love and self-worth, because you are kind of connecting it with the results that you get from your business. And I think that was something that for me was really an eye-opener, because when I was crying like that in Atlanta, I was thinking about that afterwards. And I was like, I don't really understand why am I, of course it's okay if I just have one client in a group, of course it's okay if it kind of fails, that product. So consciously you get it. You're like, no, it's fine. I'm okay. And I'm worth it to be loved. And even though I would not be successful in what I do, but subconsciously it can be a very different story. And also when you're used to working hard and kind of pushing, and you also love what you do, it's actually extra tricky, because I was always busy thinking about my plans, my ideas, the things that I really would want to do for my business. And even if I had a vacation, if I had days off, my mind was always working on that, always. I remember a holiday to Japan, which was a great trip, but I felt the need to bring a notebook and to go into a cafe while my husband and my daughter were out to go see some village. And I didn't go because I wanted time for me to just work on my plans. But it's not about if you work on plans on your holiday, but it's about what is driving that. And I felt, in hindsight, there was something kind of pulling me that didn't allow me to really enjoy my time with my husband and my daughter. I just had to do the planning work and, like writing out my ideas and stuff. And I'm so glad that I overcame that. I worked on that afterwards, and I don't have that anymore. And it's such a big difference in how you experience, the time that you have when you're not working. Also in working, of course, because it's a lot more relaxed when you work.
Yeah. So when that was happening in Japan, you're there on holiday, your husband and daughter are going off, and you felt compelled to have some time for yourself and do your work. What emotions were you feeling at the time, or what did you feel afterwards that made you become aware of, oh, this is interesting. Like, why did I do that? because it sounds to me when you're saying that it was like, it's what you wanted to do, but it also wasn't what you wanted to do because you wanted to go and be with them, but you were almost, I don't know, punishing yourself in a way or making yourself do this other thing because I don't know. I don't want to put the words in your mouth. So you tell me, like, what is it that you figured out?
That's a good question. It's a good question. So the funny thing is that in the moment itself, I didn't realize that. I didn't feel like I was punishing myself. I was always feeling like I love what I do. And I just, I feel great. I have a lot of energy. And so, but I was already in that pushing phase for a long time without realizing it. And so a lot of the realizations came later. And in my case, like sometimes it can be someone like having a conversation with you, asking the right questions. It can be some people, they realize it because they get ill, they become sick and then they wonder how did they get there? But in my case, I had a session with an acupuncturist who had it was like a system that could measure my energy in my body. And it would give a score on a monitor. And my total score was about 34 or something. And I asked him, so what does that mean? What's a normal score? He said, well, at your age, it should be 120. And I was like, oh, I was flabbergasted because I felt great. I was passionate about my work and I was doing great, right?
Wow.
And the moment he said 100 and 120, I had 2 seconds of, oh my God. And then I just sighed. I relaxed and I said, I actually feel like that. And so I needed to see the number to feel, because that's what's happening when you are pushing yourself hard. There's a distance between what your body really feels and what your mind thinks it feels and does. And when I realized that, I felt tired. I really felt tired. I felt the fatigue in my body, and I knew it was not from a couple of days. I had that for a long time already. And I decided then and there that I would do something about that. So I went to bed early every day, like an hour earlier than I was used to. And what happened in those weeks was I became more tired, of course, because my body got more rest. And it was like, yes, let's take this. And I was like, oh no, what am I doing? Because I have a business to run and I am tired. But I did stick with that because I knew that I needed that. It needed more time to kind of take that rest to restore my body's energy. And I also realized it's not just a physical thing. So after that, I started to work on, what is it that kind of makes me tired and what makes it, why am I doing things that is not healthy for my body? Actually, why am I not feeling that? I started to feel more from that day on, and I started to be more conscious about that. And so I guess that when you are in that kind of stress mode, kind of pushing and running and working hard, you actually don't realize it until something happens or you have a conversation about that. Or
I was going to ask you, so how do we know? Because from what you're saying, like if you are this kind of type, an overachieving type, someone who's always maybe prided themselves on being a hard worker and someone who's capable and accomplished. I'm speaking from personal experience myself here. That's me as well. But how do you know if you're in this state where you're continually pushing and you're actually really depleted? What might be the signs that you recognize? And also what I really am interested in as well. So I'm going to double up the question here, but you can give me a double answer. Some of the consequences of actually being in that state, like what are the kind of things that you're doing when you are in that state where you're just working so hard, you're pushing yourself to the limit? How is that impacting the decisions that you're making, what you're doing in your business and in your life. Because maybe there might be some way of recognizing it there as well. But yeah, I'm keen to hear what you have to say there.
Yeah. So what I see with some of my clients when they are in that state, they do a lot. They do a lot of, I don't know, whatever they need to do to grow their business and to achieve their goals. So they work hard. And it's not so much about like the long hours. It can be, but it's actually a lot of action, but in a way that isn't always working for the goals that they want to achieve. And so they feel like they are working without making the progress that they are looking for. And so it feels like you are kind of pushing against a wall. So the harder you push, oh, you see my dog behind me. I do. Can't control everything.
So good.
So it feels like the harder you push, the more you are tiring yourself. And so you do notice a little bit of that tiredness, or maybe you notice that you use your days off and your weekends to kind of recharge your battery to be able to work again, work the next week. And so you might notice that you don't feel like doing things when you have the free time to do fun stuff because you're tired, you just don't feel like it. And so you rather just, I don't know, be by yourself or not do as much because you need to recharge. So that could be something you recognize. Or what I also see with my clients is that they get frustrated. They get frustrated with potential clients because they are calling them, chasing them, but they are not getting back to them, or they get no a lot in the sales calls. And so they are doing a lot of sales calls, but you know, the results are not showing what they expect. And so they can be resentment. They can be resentment towards clients, potential clients, because they are doing so much. They feel that, but they are not feeling the, I don't know, it's not coming back in a way that feels good. And so that could be something you recognize. And so what it does in the long term is that you're burning yourself out. And maybe you don't like get a burnout, but you can live in this state for years and years. And it's actually depriving you from experiencing joy and relaxation and fun and a kind of an easiness to, I don't know, to just relax and to enjoy the good things in life and in your work.
And I imagine that when it's been something that's been going on for years, it feels normal because it is your normality. And that's so interesting, isn't it? Because how hard it is then to become aware that actually it doesn't have to be this way. This normal that is now doesn't actually have to be your normal. It may simply be because you've been doing this for so long that it feels normal to feel like that. I know for sure, like I have times where I can tell I get towards the end of the week and I'm not stringing sentences together properly. That's probably not the best time when I'm recording podcasts. But, you know, I'm starting to get a bit frustrated. I'm probably not making the best decisions. Things feel harder to do. And I now am a lot more in tune with myself. And I recognize I'm like, well, I'm just tired. My brain is fried. I need to take a break. I need to relax. I need to go and do something else and recharge. But when we're in that, you know, if we're in a state like that perpetually, I can just imagine, you know, some of the decisions that you might be making with a tired brain and your subconscious really tuning in and trying to protect you is probably leading to quite a lot of fear-based decisions. Would you say? What's your experience around that?
Yes, that's true. Because when you are making your decisions fear-based, you always feel like you need more, that what you need is kind of outside yourself. So then you look for, I don't know, maybe the next course or the next strategy. You are maybe making decisions that really don't help you, but it's actually blocking you from growing your business, maybe focusing on the things that would help you move forward with your business. You would maybe have the feeling of grabbing the things that you think are a solution to a problem that you have. Well, basically, and that is, I think that's kind of a challenge when you are someone who is a striver, someone who wants to do well and pushing themselves forward, is to take care of yourself first. It feels so counterintuitive when you are kind of in that stress mode and you feel like you have to do more and work hard. It's actually more productive to relax more first. And I think that's kind of the challenge, and also the challenge that I work on with my clients. When I see that they have this goal, they come to me to help them with achieving that goal. But when I see that their stress level is that high, I know that the way that they want to get there is by pushing themselves without letting anything go and just add things to their plate, right? Do more. Yeah. But I know that doesn't work. So I am always trying to find the way to kind of relax them a little bit first before they take a next step. And so I remember I worked with a client and she wanted to go in a different direction for her work. But she was always, she was working hard. She was always trying to kind of prove herself as well, that she does a good job. And, she is good at what she does. But I noticed that she was very controlling in the sense that she couldn't let go of having to do things. And even if she would go on a holiday, she would tell me, I feel so tired and I'm not getting things done. And I would ask, what do you need to do? Well, she had a whole list. Like, I have a list for vacation. I need to see this. I need to do that. I need to go there. I need to be with that person. And I was like, what if you just wouldn't do all that and just feel whatever you feel like doing and do whatever you feel like doing? And that was hard for her, but that was actually her breakthrough, because then she realized that she wasn't giving herself what she needed. She was tired and she needed to not having to do anything.
Yes.
And when she could kind of get that and she would let go, which is very hard for someone who is used to pushing and doing a lot. That was a turnaround for her, because after that, she started to live more of a relaxed life. She would have a new perspective on goals that she had, that it's okay if it would take a little bit longer. It's okay if she would just, be enjoying things along the way. And it was actually a good thing. And so it changed a lot for her, and it started there.
Wow. That was really insightful. And I think, I can certainly, I've seen, and I've even think I've done myself at times, where you think, oh, well, this isn't working, so I've got to do something different, or, I've got to try something else. And I see this a lot in people I work with as well. So that, that was really relevant to me, that actually what's driving this, this way of being is like getting frustrated, thinking that what you're doing isn't working, and thinking that you need to do something else, and adding and adding and adding. And you suddenly end up with all of this stuff that you're needing to do. The burden is so heavy and big on your shoulders. And actually, often what I see is like, well, the thing that you had in the start that you think wasn't working, actually what did work, it just wasn't working as well as you wanted it to. So what if we just drop all this other stuff that started creating and haven't quite got there, and you're just adding to your to-do list, and just focus on that one thing? Like, let's get it working better. Let's actually simplify or choose the one right thing that's really aligned to you, and not the thing that you think is going to be the most successful just because you overanalyzed it or crunched the numbers or someone else is doing it, or all of these reasons that we might have.
Yeah.
I know that sounds so easy, but it's hard, isn't it?
It is. And we sometimes think that it's faster to kind of push through, to go from A to B and just push. work harder. While sometimes if you don't push it, it's actually faster. It looks like the longer route, but it's faster because your results will come faster. I remember there was a time when I would speak somewhere. I did a presentation and I had 40 people sign up for a free call, which is the sales call. And I was so excited. But that was in the time I was pushing myself a lot. There was a lot of mental pressure. I did those sales calls. I had zero person saying yes to my offer. Zero. And a few years later, I'm still doing the same kind of calls just to see if we're a match and, what working with me would look like. But when I'm doing them now, it's like every 2 or 3 person would say yes. So you can imagine that actually with the same strategy, the results are so different. So the only difference is me. It's my energy.
Yes.
That's how powerful that is, to actually being self-aware enough and honest enough to just recognize how you feel and to allow yourself to have whatever you need in this moment to take care of yourself and work from that place of more of a relaxation and more of a positive energy.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, because I'm all about doing less and actually achieving more. And it's so possible. It's just when we actually have to, maybe take that scary step to take your foot off the pedal.
Yes. That's the scariest part.
It's scary. It is scary because you feel like, oh my God, what if everything just falls apart and nothing works? But actually the opposite generally happens, doesn't it? And it's such a hard thing. Like, I've come from a background of being very logical kind of person. I think we look for evidence, we look for facts. And this whole thing around your energy that you just described, I was sitting there just nodding my head because it's 100% true. It's so much about your energy, how you're feeling, your confidence, in those calls or in whatever you're doing, that attracts people to you, that has someone saying yes. And yet everybody's looking for, well, I must need to say something different. I must need a different process. I must need another thing. I need to learn something. I need to go out and do something. I need to do, 5 posts instead of 3, or,
Yes. But it's actually,
you don't.
no. And it's actually the mental pressure is bringing in a neediness in, sales calls that you do, or maybe the post that you write, because you are thinking that way. Subconsciously, you're thinking in a certain way that you need them to say yes. You need to achieve this. You need this revenue right now. and that really doesn't help at all.
We can all feel it, even though we might not know that we feel it. Like, it's just something that probably makes you go, I'm just not sure. And then you don't take that step. Right. Amazing. So you've shared so much with us today. I think this is really powerful. There's obviously so many layers here. And I think for each person, you can reflect on a lot of what Helen has shared with us today and think, well, what is that me? Am I in that place where I'm pushing? Am I really exhausted and tired permanently so much that I think it's normal? How is that impacting my life, and how could it even be different? But if you would like to reach out and learn a bit more from Helen, please tell us, Helen, how they can find you and how they could learn more from you or reach out and connect with you.
You can connect with me on Instagram. That's Helen _Kho, KHO _Khoworks. But you can also book a business mindset session with me if you want to know more about what is blocking you in realizing your goals. We can have a chat and we can see if I can help you with that. So that would be
Fantastic. Amazing. And so if you, Helen, give me the link for that session. I've popped that in the show notes, so you can just dive down there and find where to book in to have a chat with Helen and see if there is something that is holding you back, or if you're in that place where you're pushing too hard, you're working too hard, and you really just don't know how to stop or what's going on, then Helen is the person who can help you. So thank you so much, Helen. This has been such a pleasure. I really appreciate your time and sharing all of this knowledge with us, because I think so often it is these intangible things that we're living in, that are our reality, that have such a huge impact. And it's when we can find them, discover them, and actually work through it, that, you can actually see big quantum leaps. And it's not, like you said, not from actually doing something. It's not from doing more. And I love this, because it's exactly the same as what I say to my clients. I'm like, it's not about doing more. It's actually just about getting more aligned, more in tune with what it is that you want and the people who you're speaking to.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, thank you. And please go and connect with Helen. Go and follow her on Instagram. This is incredible, so powerful. I think any time that you can spend, working on yourself and learning what it is that is making you tick or keeping you in that place that you are, it is very valuable, and probably more so than a lot of other things that you may be spending time on right now. So thank you, Helen. Really good to talk to you and connect again.
Thank you.
Now, if I asked you, do you know who your ideal customer is? More than likely, you're going to answer, yes, of course I do. Or at least I know enough about them to market to them. Or do you? You see, the number one reason why most audiences aren't converting into buyers, or even if you're having trouble building an audience in the first place, is simply because you haven't gone deep enough to understand who it is exactly who you're speaking to. There's no connection being made there, and therefore those people aren't taking that next step. They're not connecting with you, they're not connecting through to become your clients. It's not so much about who they are as a person, who you might see, but more what is actually going on inside their head. What are those questions running on repeat inside their minds? What is it that they're feeling so stuck and frustrated about? And really, why aren't they able to shift themselves out of that place? Now, these are just some of the amazing questions that I get you to explore inside my brand new Customer Avatar Worksheet. I've called it the ultimate Customer Avatar Worksheet because you will never, ever have seen one like this before. It is so much about what's going on in the mind, with a couple of questions just to help you get the visual profile of who it is you're speaking to as well. But clearly, it is their thoughts and the way to connect to their thoughts that shifts somebody from being just a person out there in the market into being somebody who's an active fan, a member of your audience, and not only that, but also a buyer. And that takes deeper connection than what most people are prepared to do. So if you're prepared to go that additional step to get really deep and meaningful with your ideal customer, then head over to my website and download this free worksheet right now, and you can get started. It's at jessicaosborne.com/customer-avatar. I've got the link for you here in the show notes, so you can hop straight over there and just get it, download it, and let me know how you get on. Like, how did you find this exercise that I take you through? Because I guarantee you're going to learn more than one brand new thing about your ideal customer that you never knew before. So enjoy, good luck. I hope you love it as much as I do.